wind that blew open the door of the tiny cafe, causing heads to turn. Amelia stepped inside, clutching her coat tightly against the cold. Her heart pounded as she scanned the room, her nerves threatening to get the better of her. She wasn't sure what to expect from this blind date. Her best friend Leah had set it up, insisting it would be fun, a change of pace for her. Amelia spotted a table near the center of the cafe with a lone man sitting at it, engrossed in his phone. Assuming it was him, she squared her shoulders and approached. She wasn't going to let her nervousness get the better of her. "Hi," she said, her voice slightly breathless as she pulled out the chair. "Sorry if I'm a little late. Traffic was insane." The man looked up, startled. He had piercing green eyes, and his expression shifted from confusion to surprise. "Oh," he said, setting his phone down. "You must be Amelia," she offered quickly, smiling nervously. "Leah probably told you about me." He hesitated for a moment, his gaze studying her carefully. "Right, Amelia? Of course." He gestured for her to sit, and she did, her cheeks warming under his intense stare. They began talking, and Amelia couldn't help but notice that he seemed different from what she had imagined. He wasn't overly friendly, but his voice carried an air of authority and charm. As the conversation continued, she found herself oddly drawn to him, even though something about the situation felt slightly off. When the waiter came to take their orders, the man looked up with a smirk. "Order whatever you like," he said, his tone casual yet commanding. Amelia glanced at the menu, flustered. "Oh, I don't need anything too fancy," she said, trying to keep her nerves in check. "Trust me," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You deserve to enjoy yourself." She felt her cheeks flush again, her embarrassment mingling with intrigue. Something about him felt out of place, a strange magnetism that she couldn't ignore. Still, she brushed it off. Leah had said this blind date would be memorable, and maybe this was just what she needed. The conversation became surprisingly easy as they talked about hobbies, work, and little things that made them laugh. Despite his initial aloofness, he started opening up, sharing witty anecdotes and teasing her about her quirky habits. Amelia found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, her initial nervousness melting away. But as the date progressed, there were moments when she caught him staring at her, his expression unreadable. It sent a shiver down her spine, though she couldn't tell if it was from unease or attraction. Finally, after nearly an hour, he leaned forward and rested his elbows on the table. "So, Amelia," he began, his voice soft but steady, "what brings you to something like this? A blind date, I mean." She hesitated, fiddling with her napkin. "I guess I just wanted to try something new," she admitted. "Life's been a little complicated lately." "Complicated how?" he asked, his green eyes locking onto hers. Her chest tightened under his gaze. "Just, money struggles, job hunting, normal stuff." She forced a small laugh, hoping to lighten the mood. He didn't laugh. Instead, his expression grew darker, more contemplative. "And you're here, sitting across from me, trying to find a moment of escape?" His words hit a little too close to home, but she nodded. "I guess so." He leaned back, his demeanor shifting again. "Interesting." Before she could ask what he meant, another man approached the table. He was tall, sharply dressed, and had a commanding presence. Amelia looked up, confused, as the stranger leaned down to whisper something in her date's ear. The green-eyed man's expression tightened, and he gave a small nod. "I'll be right back," he said, standing abruptly. "Stay here." Amelia blinked, startled by the sudden change in his tone. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "It's fine," he said, but his curt reply didn't ease her concern. He walked off with the sharply dressed man, leaving her alone at the table. As she waited, Amelia's thoughts raced. Who was this guy, really? He had a mysterious air about him, and now this strange interruption was adding to the puzzle. She glanced around the cafe, feeling increasingly out of place. Her stomach churned with unease. Minutes later, he returned, his expression unreadable. He sat down without a word, and Amelia couldn't help but blurt out, "Is everything all right?" You seem different. He hesitated, then let out a long breath. I wasn't expecting this, he said cryptically. Expecting what? She pressed, her anxiety mounting. You, he said, his eyes locking onto hers again. I wasn't expecting someone like you. Her heart skipped a beat at the intensity in his voice. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. He leaned forward again, his expression softer this time. Amelia, I need to tell you something, but I'm not sure how you're going to react. She swallowed hard, her pulse racing. What is it? Before he could answer, a commotion erupted near the cafe's entrance. Amelia turned to see a group of men in suits entering, their eyes scanning the room. Her date's expression darkened instantly, and he stood up abruptly. Come with me, he said, grabbing her hand. What's going on? She asked, panic rising in her chest. No time to explain, he said, pulling her towards the back exit. Trust me. Despite her fear, she followed him, her heart pounding as they slipped out of the cafe and into the alleyway behind it. The cold air bit at her skin, but she barely noticed as she tried to process what was happening. Who are those men? What's going on? She demanded. He stopped and turned to face her, his expression serious. Amelia, there's something you need to know. My name isn't Eric, and I'm not just some guy on a blind date. My real name is Lucas, and let's just say my life is a little more complicated than yours. Her mind spun as she tried to make sense of his words. What are you talking about? Who are you, really? Let's just say I come from a world where people don't play fair, he said, his voice heavy with meaning. Those men back there? They're part of that world, and they're not exactly friendly. Amelia's stomach churned as the pieces started to fall into place. Are you in danger? Am I in danger? Lucas hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but I promise. I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. She stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind of fear, confusion, and something else. Something she couldn't quite name. Despite the chaos, she felt an inexplicable pull towards him. A sense that he was someone she could trust, even if she didn't understand why. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas's jaw tightened. We run. And with that, he took her hand again, leading her into the dark, twisting alleyways as the sound of footsteps and shouts echoed behind them. Amelia's breath came in sharp gasps as they darted through the labyrinth of narrow alleyways. The cold air bit at her lungs, and the pounding of her heart echoed in her ears. Lucas's grip on her hand was firm, guiding her with precision as though he knew the city's hidden pathways by heart. Where are we going? She managed to gasp between breaths. Somewhere safe, Lucas said, glancing back over his shoulder. His green eyes burned with intensity, a stark contrast to the fear coursing through her veins. We just need to keep moving. The shouts behind them grew louder, closer. Amelia's legs burned, but she didn't dare slow down. Lucas led her around another corner, through a cluttered courtyard, and into what appeared to be an abandoned building. He pushed the door open and quickly pulled her inside, shutting it behind them with a quiet but decisive click. Stay quiet, he whispered, pressing a finger to his lips. His chest heaved with exertion, but his expression remained calm and calculated. Amelia nodded, her back pressed against the cold, damp wall as she tried to steady her breathing. The building smelled of mildew and decay, and the dim light barely illuminated their surroundings. Lucas peeked through a crack in the boarded-up window, his jaw tight. What's happening? Amelia finally whispered, her voice trembling. Who are those men, and why are they after you? Lucas turned to her, his expression softening ever so slightly. They're after me because of who I am, or rather what I represent. That's not an answer, she said, her frustration momentarily outweighing her fear. You owe me an explanation. You dragged me into this. He let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his dark hair. All right, but you're not going to like it. Try me, she said, crossing her arms even though her legs were still shaking. Lucas leaned against the wall, his gaze distant. I'm not just some guy. My family is, well, let's just say they're powerful. They control a lot of things, businesses, politics, underground networks. And because of that, there are people who want to see us destroyed. Amelia stared at him, her mind reeling. You're part of a crime family? His lips twitched into a humorless smile. That's one way to put it. But I'm not like them. I left that world behind years ago. I wanted a normal life, away from all the power struggles and violence. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then why are those men after you? Because leaving isn't as simple as saying goodbye, Lucas said bitterly. There are people who think I know too much, people who see me as a threat even though I've done everything to stay out of their way. Tonight was supposed to be a normal evening, a chance to forget about all of it. Just for a little while, Amelia's stomach churned. And you picked a blind date for that? I didn't pick it, he said with a shrug. My friend thought it'd be good for me. I didn't expect. Well, you. Her heart fluttered despite the chaos surrounding them. What about me? I didn't expect someone like you to make me feel. He hesitated, his eyes locking onto hers. Like maybe there's still something worth fighting for. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Despite everything, his dangerous world, the fear pounding in her chest, there was something undeniable between them. But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside, and her fear came rushing back. They found us, Lucas said, his voice low and tense. We need to move. He grabbed her hand again, and they slipped out through a side door just as the sound of heavy footsteps reached the front of the building. They ran through the dark streets, the tension between them thick as they tried to stay ahead of their pursuers. Finally, they reached an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. Lucas guided her inside, locking the door behind them. The space was vast and empty, the air thick with dust. Amelia leaned against a metal beam, her body trembling with exhaustion. Are we safe here? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. For now, Lucas said, his eyes scanning the room. They won't think to look here right away. This place was important to me once. Amelia frowned. Why? He hesitated, then said, it belonged to my mother. Before everything went wrong, the raw emotion in his voice took her by surprise. For the first time, she saw a vulnerability in Lucas that made him seem more human, more real. What happened to her? She asked gently. She died, he said simply, his gaze distant, caught in the crossfire of a world she didn't belong to. Just like you. The weight of his words hit her hard. I'm sorry, she said, her voice soft. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. That's why I left. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt because of me. But now, he paused, his green eyes searching hers. Now I don't know if I can keep you safe. Amelia stepped closer, her fear mingling with a newfound determination. I don't need you to protect me, Lucas. I just need you to be honest with me. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, here's the truth. I don't want you to leave. Even though it's dangerous, even though it's wrong, I can't let you go. Her heart pounded as she met his gaze. Then don't, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Then, Lucas closed the distance between them, his hand gently cupping her face as he pressed his forehead to hers. You don't know what you're getting into, he murmured. Maybe not, she whispered back. But I'm willing to find out. Before either of them could say more, the sound of distant sirens shattered the moment. Lucas's expression hardened. They're getting closer. We need to figure out our next move. Amelia nodded, her resolve strengthening. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to run anymore. Together, they would face whatever danger lay ahead, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to survive. Lucas quickly began pacing the warehouse, his sharp eyes scanning for anything they could use. Amelia watched him, her nerves jangling with tension, but she refused to let fear overwhelm her. She had come too far to back down now. What's the plan? She asked, trying to sound steady. Lucas paused, his hands on his hips as he exhaled deeply. We need to get out of the city. They've got resources, contacts, and eyes everywhere. Staying here is suicide. Her stomach sank. Out of the city? But where would we even go? He gave her a small, wry smile. I've got places, safe houses, connections I can still trust, I think. But it won't be easy. Amelia folded her arms tightly across her chest, trying to ignore the fear bubbling under the surface. Then let's go. The sooner, the better. He frowned, stepping closer. Amelia, this isn't just running from the law or avoiding a bad date gone wrong. These people will stop at nothing to take me down. And now that you're with me, they'll see you as leverage. I need you to be sure, absolutely sure, that you want to come with me. She met his intense gaze, her own resolve hardening. I've never been more sure of anything. I'm not leaving you, Lucas. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, his mask of control slipped, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. All right, he said finally. Then we move now. The night swallowed them as they slipped out of the warehouse, sticking to the shadows. Lucas led the way, his movements precise and silent. Amelia followed closely, her heart pounding with every step. They avoided main streets, cutting through back alleys and quiet neighborhoods, until they reached a nondescript black SUV parked under the cover of a large tree. Lucas opened the passenger door for her, his expression unreadable. Get in. She climbed inside, her nerves spiking as he slid into the driver's seat. He started the engine, the low rumble almost deafening in the tense silence. This car's clean, he said, as if reading her thoughts. No trackers. We should have a head start. As they pulled onto the dark road, Amelia couldn't help but glance over at him. Where are we going? There's a cabin about 3 hours north, Lucas replied, his voice low and steady. It's isolated, off the grid. We can regroup there, figure out our next steps. The weight of the situation pressed down on her. Lucas, do you think we'll ever be safe? He glanced at her, his expression softening. I don't know, but I'll do everything in my power to make sure you are. The sincerity in his voice sent a shiver through her. Despite the danger, despite everything she didn't know about him, she believed him. The drive was quiet, tense, and surreal. The city lights faded into darkness as they headed deeper into the countryside. Amelia found herself staring out the window, her mind racing with questions. Who exactly was Lucas? What had she gotten herself into? And why, despite the chaos, did she feel so drawn to him? Her thoughts were interrupted when Lucas suddenly slowed the car, pulling onto the shoulder of the deserted road. He killed the engine and turned to her, his expression serious. What's wrong? She asked, her pulse spiking. I think we're being followed, he said grimly. Amelia's blood ran cold. What do we do? Lucas reached under his seat and pulled out a sleek black pistol, checking the chamber with practiced ease. Stay in the car. Lock the doors. If anything happens, you drive. Don't stop, don't look back. Do you understand? Her heart hammered in her chest. Lucas, no, you can't. Amelia, he said firmly, his green eyes blazing. This isn't up for debate. Stay here. Before she could argue further, he slipped out of the car, closing the door quietly behind him. She watched as he moved like a shadow, disappearing into the darkness. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves and the faint hum of a car engine approaching. Amelia's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. She strained her ears, desperate to hear any sign of what was happening. Seconds felt like hours as the tension mounted. Then, suddenly, she heard it. A sharp crack, like the sound of a gunshot. Her heart leaped into her throat. Panic surged through her, but before she could act, the driver's side door flew open, and Lucas climbed back in, his face tense but unharmed. Drive, he ordered. Without hesitation, she started the car, her hands trembling as she pulled back onto the road. What happened? She asked, her voice shaking. I took care of it, he said shortly, his gaze fixed on the rearview mirror. We're clear. For now. She didn't press further, but the weight of his words hung heavy between them. Whatever taking care of it meant, she knew it wasn't good. Still, she couldn't deny the relief flooding through her at the sight of him unharmed. They drove in silence for another hour, the tension slowly giving way to exhaustion. By the time they reached the cabin, Amelia felt like she could collapse. The small, rustic structure was nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by towering trees and complete silence. Lucas parked the car and led her inside, locking the door behind them. The interior was simple but cozy, with a fireplace, a worn sofa, and a small kitchen. He handed her a blanket and gestured toward the couch. "Get some rest," he said, his voice softer now. "You've been through enough for one night." "What about you?" she asked, concern flickering in her eyes. "I'll keep watch," he said simply, his tone leaving no room for argument. As she curled up on the couch, exhaustion finally overtaking her, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held. Lucas's world was dangerous, unpredictable, and nothing like the life she'd known. But as she drifted off to sleep, one thought remained clear. She wasn't going to abandon him. Not now. Not ever. The fire crackled softly in the cabin, its warmth pushing back the chill of the night. Amelia woke to find Lucas sitting in a chair by the window, the gun resting in his lap. His eyes were distant, scanning the dark woods outside. For a moment, she just watched him, the weight of the night settling heavily on her. "You didn't sleep," she said, her voice hoarse. He glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Didn't have the luxury." She sat up, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. "You can't keep doing this. You can't shoulder all of this on your own." Lucas looked at her, his green eyes weary but filled with something she couldn't quite place. "I've been doing this my whole life, Amelia. Protecting the people I care about. It's just what I know." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. For all his strength and confidence, Lucas was just a man, flawed, burdened, and trying to do the right thing in a world that seemed determined to pull him under. She stood and crossed the room, sitting on the arm of his chair. "You don't have to do it alone anymore," she said softly. "I'm here. We'll figure it out together." He stared at her, his expression unreadable. "You say that now. But if you really knew me, if you knew everything I've done—" "I don't care," she interrupted, her voice firm. "Whatever you've done, whoever you were, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is who you are now. And the man sitting in front of me is someone worth fighting for." His breath hitched, and for a moment, she thought he might argue. But then he reached up, his hand cupping her cheek. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into," he said, his voice low. "Maybe not," she admitted. "But I don't care." The next morning, Lucas had a plan. He explained it to Amelia over a quick breakfast of canned food and coffee. They would leave the cabin before sunrise and head to a remote airfield where a trusted contact could get them out of the country. It was risky, but it was their best shot at disappearing completely. As they packed the car, Amelia noticed how calm Lucas seemed, even as danger loomed over them. She admired his resilience, though it worried her how much weight he carried. The drive to the airfield was tense, the silence between them heavy with unspoken fears. Lucas's eyes flicked constantly to the rearview mirror, his body taut with readiness. Amelia clutched her seatbelt, her mind racing with possibilities of what could go wrong. But when they arrived at the airfield, the sight of the small private plane waiting for them brought a wave of relief. Lucas's contact, a middle-aged man with a grizzled beard, greeted them quickly and ushered them toward the plane. "We need to move fast," the man said. "You've got maybe 10 minutes before someone catches on." Lucas nodded and helped Amelia into the plane. As she climbed aboard, her stomach churned with a mix of hope and dread. Was this really the end of the nightmare? Could they finally escape? But just as Lucas was about to climb in after her, the sound of tires screeching on gravel filled the air. Amelia turned to see 3 black SUVs skidding to a stop at the edge of the airfield. Men in suits poured out, guns drawn. "Go!" Lucas shouted to the pilot. "Get her out of here!" "No!" Amelia screamed, grabbing his arm. "I'm not leaving without you." Lucas pulled her close, his green eyes blazing. "You have to. It's the only way to keep you safe." Tears streamed down her face as she clung to him. "Lucas, please, don't do this." He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice breaking. "Amelia, you've given me something I thought I'd lost a long time ago. Hope. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect that. To protect you." Before she could protest further, he gently pushed her into the plane and shut the door. The pilot started the engines, and the plane began to taxi down the runway. Amelia pounded on the window, screaming for Lucas as the distance between them grew. Through the glass, she saw him turn to face the men, his posture strong and unyielding. The last thing she saw before the plane lifted off was Lucas raising his gun, ready to fight. The weeks that followed were a blur. Amelia stayed in a safe house arranged by Lucas's contact, her heart heavy with worry. Every day, she waited for news, dreading what she might hear. Then, one evening, the door to the safe house opened, and there he was, Lucas, alive but battered, his green eyes tired yet filled with relief. "Lucas!" she cried, rushing to him. He caught her in his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear. "I told you I'd do whatever it takes to keep you safe," he murmured. Tears streamed down her face as she clung to him. "I thought I'd lost you." "Never," he said, his voice firm. "I promised you, Amelia, and I keep my promises." As they held each other, the world outside faded away. They had survived the chaos, the danger, and the impossible odds. Together, they would face whatever came next, knowing that no matter what, they had each other. For Lucas and Amelia, love had become their greatest strength.